So when we were designing this program for you, we were thinking about really, you know, having had the last year we've all had and how it's really impacted everyone's businesses, particularly on the creative side. We were thinking about what do you need, you know, what would this program help get you started with? And refocus and business resilience are a big topic of mine personally. I really believe that, you know, we can get ourselves mentally prepared and make ourselves much more successful. Really what we're going to talk to you about today is about getting clear on where you're trying to get to and what you want to achieve. So I'll bring in James West. James is from West Creative. He's a business advisor. He works with Creative United as well. And you worked on all host of weird and wonderful programs in the past. James, you just want to introduce yourself to the group and tell them what you've been doing lately.
Sure. Hi everybody, it's great to see all your faces. So I run a creative agency. That's my day-to-day job. So that's selling creative services into businesses, whether that's websites, magazines, through to training programs and events. But I also, as Nat has suggested, as explained, a fair proportion of my time is also working directly with creative businesses and trying to bring some of that kind of business thinking, so switching the hat in a different direction. I also, as people have commented, I also have a collection of very bright clothes. So if the words I share aren't memorable, at least my top will be. So that's my alternative calling card.
Brilliant. Just reflecting on when we started talking about refocusing, you know, what does refocus mean to you, James?
Well, in many ways, when I started looking at it, it means what happens, what I do every Monday morning. Yeah. So I know that if I don't have 2 hours on a Monday morning to look at what I achieved the week before and what I'm doing next, that the whole week sort of goes to pot. It's slightly out of kilter. And, you know, and if I come back on holiday and I come back on a Monday, it completely ruins my week. And because I haven't had that sort of slot. So really, it's exactly the same as my Monday morning, but often in the context we're looking at, it's that on a bigger level and a bigger scale, which is about reflecting where the past, where I am today, and what does that mean for where I want to go next. And you, how would you?
Yeah, well, refocus really, I think for me, it just feels about, you know, getting some energy in and getting really sure about what is the next stage for your business, what's the next step up, and what does it really look like? Yeah, I think it's about like getting really excited about something, and also like COVID's been such a distraction, I think, for all of us, you know, and it's really impacted us in many different ways. Like, you know, even, you know, my business hours were massively impacted. I had to homeschool. I've now been sat at this desk for the best part of 12 months, which was not how I ran my business before. Yeah, I think it's about that, connecting to what is the next big thing for you, and really getting the tools ready to help you do that. You know, and another thing for me in the last year, just reflecting on it, I've got much more organised. Like, I don't go out for any meetings anymore, so I've had more time. I've developed 2 websites. I use Trello efficiently now. I found great tools like Padlet, which you know has really helped me to organise my brain. Actually, you know, anything I see that's of interest that I don't have time to read it, or any potential collaborators, I just throw it in a Padlet. They're just like little post-it notes on a screen, and you can drag and drop them everywhere. And it's my kind of go-to place when I'm a bit like, okay, what am I doing? What's the next thing I should be looking at?
It is interesting, isn't it, when you reflect back on what things that you've done differently over the last year, in particular in the context of the pandemic, that you want to keep. So, you know, weirdly, online meetings, so I really want to have face-to-faces again. Yeah, we've all got that, we crave it, but there's definitely a place for online meetings to continue. So lots of the business advice I do, the idea that I can, you know, dip in with people and have a face-to-face is great. I mean, we almost need to remind people sometimes that we can just use the telephone to talk. You don't always have to have a Zoom call. But I really hope that there'll be a blend when we all start getting back to normal, because I've found it. And I also wonder whether in real meetings we'll have some people that will dial in, because you can get more variety to a session that you wouldn't have before. The other thing that I've experienced this last year that I definitely want to hold on to was it was, for me, the year has been a year of two halves. So the first half was the shock came. Lots of the business clients that I work with also went into shock and were having to work out how they could operate, which meant I just didn't have any work for a fair chunk, and it was very alarming. But it did pick up certainly in the second half. But what I needed is that realization that it wasn't just me, that everyone else was in it. And when you work, and I work as a sole director in a limited company, I've got associates that I work with, but really it's just me from home. So it was actually realizing that I had already some peer-based networks that I hadn't really used before, and having a chance to open up and just say, oh, and it's amazing when you share something, however everyone else shares something, and you go, oh my God, we're all in the same place. And having that network was so reassuring. So for me, it'd be interesting to see how I use that network going forward when there's not a one uniting experience that's bonding us. But I found that was something I'd never really used before, because I was out and about connecting with people on a day-to-day.
And I think, that's a really, really important thing about business resilience. I think you can get a lot of business resilience from people around you, and not necessarily, in your business or work with you day to day. But, I'm a big fan of accountability buddies. Like, I started working with another coach 8 or 9 years ago when I started my business. And I think, we met up every week. We were like, okay, what have you done this far? What have you got your branding sorted? Have you done your website? Have you done any copy? You're going to do any marketing? That sort of, we were really, driving each other forward. And now, she's a trusted friend. And whenever, I have a difficult time, or, if I get a bit of a wobble in the business, I just phone her up, and she's there. I mean, she can coach me as well, which is ideal, but also she's just there for someone who cares about my business as much as I do, but from a different standpoint. But I think you're right, like what you're talking about is like accepting what's gone on, really, and thinking about, okay, this has happened, all right, my business might not be where I wanted it to be when I did my goal setting this time last year, but okay, let's accept it. Let's look what's happened. Let's see what worked, what didn't work. And surprisingly, Carmel and I would never have dreamed of having online events before, but now we run a monthly meetup for creatives on like the first Monday of every month, and it's massively popular, and we get loads more people than we used to get in person, and everyone really appreciates it because it's Monday lunchtime. They can just hop on in the middle of their work day and access some good business support. So we definitely have found that useful. So definitely thinking, sorry.
No, just on that point of acceptance. I mean, the sort of the old adage that you can't stand still in business couldn't be truer in the year that's just been, in terms of reminding yourself of it, and that thing about your goals. It's a lot of my kind of survival instincts that have kicked in over the last year has been about not necessarily changing my goals. My goals are really still relevant and still the same, but what I've had to do is loosen my grip a bit. Background noise. I've had to loosen my grip a little bit, and that, just to soften it, and just actually, it's okay to let the wheel slip a bit, and it's finding that weird sense of comfort and comfort in that freedom. Because if you try to hold everything so rigid, you end up just sort of stressing yourself out. When it all kicked off, people were doing their COVID response, or their, I'm going to do this webinar, I'm going to do this thing, and you've talked about building 2 websites. I hear those stories, and I felt like I needed to do a COVID something, a response, and I did something, and then, you know what? As soon as I did it, I just took it down. I went, James, you don't have to. you don't all have to ride this wave. It's not about, and actually, a lot of what I've done over the last year is about reflecting and about accepting, and deciding where I can loosen the grip, actually, is the best phrase I could think of. And in that, it's given me just some freedom to think a bit more. And, you know, and actually, maybe that was the COVID response that I needed for the business. Not a public.
I would agree. And you know, in my experience, what I see when I'm working with clients is, especially new businesses, you know, everyone's just doing the doing and not sitting back and doing the being and the thinking. And, you know, the best thing you can do for your business is schedule an afternoon off, you know, you've got to put some time in the diary of business development and make sure you do it. No, you know, don't ever put it on the back burner, because how do you know where you are, you know? And I think what you said earlier, it was really, really interesting to me about the Monday mornings, because only this year did I just have a bit of a Mondays are just killing me, because I just launch in with a client at 9:30 and then I don't know where I am, and I've booked the first part of Monday morning off. So, and what I make sure I do is I sit at my desk and I look at my wall with the list of where my, you know, the list of goals I want to achieve for my business and what's next on the list, and I re-ground myself as to, right, this is where I am, a coaching is today, this is where Hive is, what's the next thing? And then I can really plan my week, and I make sure I do plan my week properly now. I schedule everything in the diary that needs to get done, and you know, I try and hold myself accountable to that. You know, if I'm I don't know, looking at Instagram at 2 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon, you know, I check my diary and I'm like, okay, I should be doing this. So I'm just get back and do it.
So much, you know, and you know, again, especially nowadays where you're just in the same room all the time and everything blurs, so you need structure, but also just the process of writing a list and allowing you to tick something off. You know, it sounds minor, it's the sort of thing my mum would have told me to do years ago, but oh, it's the only way I cope, because because you feel like you've got progress. And I think that this is as much true for managing tasks as it is on a broader level about vision and goals. You know, so your goals, having a goal and having stepping stones, and really then breaking them down a bit more so that you have things to anchor onto to climb. Is otherwise the goal feels too big, you know, or it feels aspirationally good, you know, the energy you talked about at the start, aspiration, inspirationally good, but you never feel like you get any closer to achieving it. So I'm a believer in if you can break it down to bits, and you can break it into bits that you can tick, it feels.
Yeah, and also your goal, like a goal setting process is so important. Like your goals have to be like tangible. You have to be able to understand when you meet them. So they've got to include numbers on financials, or the number of people you've got in your business, or the number of sales, or number of customers, or number of followers. They've got to all include that information, so you can say, yes, I've met that, or no, I haven't met that goal. And yeah, and I think with goal setting, what I do 6 monthly goals. So you know, goals can be short term, medium term, long term. I do 6 monthly goals, and then I break them down into like what are we working on in the next 3 months, and that's what I put up on my wall. But I think as well, like, you know, you have to you schedule in when you do your goals. I do mine March and October for some reason, it works for me. But it gives you an opportunity to tick back on the goals that you reached in those 6 months, and then go yes, and then really celebrate your successes and see how far you've come, because that's what motivates you on, isn't it? That sense of achievement, I'm doing really well. It gives you the confidence to carry on and the resilience to go forward, really.
Weirdly, I have my goals at the end of my to-do list. So I don't look at them often, but hopefully when I'm getting through my to-do list, they're just there. And, you know, because you have to remind yourself to look at them and to bump into them, just to keep them fresh. You know, and one of the other things I do is I always set up 5 customers I want to work with. And I don't always meet them. I don't always get there, but it's a really useful way to focus my mind on. So, for example, one of the markets I've been wanting to get into for a while is independent care homes, because we do a magazine for older people. We've done it with UK Charity, and I think that's an opportunity to push it across. It's been a weird year for that, because they probably had other things on their mind more than my magazine. But by having them there, it means that every now and then, when I have a spare moment on a Friday afternoon, I can do some more research to see whether I can find more people connected to them, or more people I know, read some newsletters relating to it, and it helps you, for me, helps me knock off that sort of point of the list.
I think that is a fantastic idea, and it's one of the things that whenever I work with small businesses, I'm always like, who do you want your clients to be? Like, if you don't know, how are you even going to like know when you met them? And I think, you know, having that list of, you know, you say 5, but I think having a list of 20 clients you might want, or 20 like magazines you want to be in, or you know, 20 features that you know you want to be involved in, and then I think you put them in order of priority, but you start working on the, you know, the 7 to 10s initially when you're doing your cold calling or refining your process of making contact and selling yourself. And then as you get better at it, you start moving up the ladder, and then you go for your number 1 client, because I think, you know, it's something really to work to.
When you commit your mind to it, it's amazing how your eyes just become aware of the other opportunities. You know, but if we ever just say we want to have more of something, or we loosely describe them, our brains almost can't spot them. But as soon as you do define them, it has a kind of kooky way of coming, almost the opportunities coming to you. Once you focus in. Yeah,
and I go a bit woo on this sort of thing, because I think, you know, I was just writing a blog post actually about working for yourself and how uncertain it is, but I think the universe has a way of delivering once you set out your stall. Like, you know, I had 6 clients roll off in a week last month, and it's the first time it ever happened, and I went, oh my god, I just lost 6 clients. And then in 3 weeks later I got 6 more back, but it was a bit, you know, it was one of those moments that made me have a little bit of a wobble. And I think, you know, like putting it out there for what you want. You know, if you want to be in the top, you know, one of the top London galleries, or if you want to, you know, you want to be featured in Stylist magazine, or if you want to be in one of the top, you know, Elle Decoration or something, then, you know, set your stall, say that's what I want. And you know, you can even build it into your vision. You know, you could, a great vision exercise I do with people is to just close your eyes and imagine what success looks like to you, and think, when you're visualizing this, think about who's around you, what are they saying to you, how does it make you feel. And you know, that could be, you know, you looking at a magazine of your products in there, and you know, sitting with all your friends going, I've made it, you know, I've done it, and that's a really great vision to anchor and reflect and go back over that vision repeatedly. It can really help. So like with regards to coming back to goal setting, I was thinking some practical tips. So in Trello, I put all my goals at the beginning on the first thing. So everything we're doing in Trello, then I can always relate it back to a goal. I think that's a good idea. And I think also thinking about accountability. If you can't hold yourself accountable, then find some way of having it. So find some way of getting that, either by putting reminders in your calendar, or committing to people, committing to other people, or having this sort of accountability buddy. And what we were talking about earlier was about flexibility and pivoting in a way. And I think it is totally fine to have goals that you don't achieve, but if you don't achieve them, you've got to reflect on why you decided not to achieve them, or you know, maybe your goal was too big, or maybe it wasn't really what you wanted to be doing, and it's about perfecting that goal setting process for yourself. So understanding how you're setting your goals, refining how you do it, and make sure that you know, the more and more as this goes on, the more goals you should be achieving, because you will just get better at that whole process.
There is something about being honest with yourself, right? You know, only you need to look at the piece of paper. There's only you that you need to judge it.
That's true.
But it's weird how I find people, I think probably because we confuse goal setting with business plans, and we confuse business plans with the thing that you give to somebody, so you forget that they're just for you initially. So but I think when you to actually look, this is just me and the piece of paper, and where did I want to get to, and why didn't I get there? And if you have that honest dialogue with yourself, it's amazing how we think, because it's business, we're writing it for someone else, and we almost divorce ourselves from the content. So I like a mirror is quite handy. A walk in the park.
So just to sort of recap, so I think like in order to focus, we need clarity, we need a vision. You can have a mission as well, which is like how you're going to get there. You know, like a lot of people are using sustainability as their mission at the moment, or some sort of positive change on the world, or and then you know, having a strategy to get there and goals. And I guess in order to achieve these things, you do need to keep motivated. Like James, like what do you do to keep yourself motivated?
But I've obviously talked about ticking things off, so that's the pragmatic side of me, but that's by far not the only thing. I think, you know, one thing actually, you talk about accountability buddies and in the report you had. One of the things I actually did a while ago was I stopped listening to some people. Sometimes you can get too much push and pull advice, you know, and it gets a bit. So actually, I just sort of went, do you know what? There's 3 people in particular I'm going to use to bounce off where I'm at. And I'm going to listen to them, and I'm not going to worry too much about other people, because it was about paring it down.
Yeah.
So some of the associates I work with, one was a peer network, and the other's a friend. So that was quite a handy thing in terms of keeping myself motivated, because I think otherwise sometimes, I don't know, people are different, and I think that's also maybe accepting that you are not to measure myself against somebody else, and it's just to really build on what things tick for me. But also the bag loads of optimism. I mean, you know, it really is embracing the ideal of optimism. I have a Polish friend, and she said to me the other day, she said, there's always a silver line, or the brighter side of life, always look on the bright side of things. And she said, that is a saying that I wish I could tell every other Polish person. Now, I don't know if anyone's Polish in her, this is her phrase, but she said that from her cultural perspective, lots of her family and friends often seek drama. And actually, what she liked was that sort of attribute of always look on the bright side of life, and you know, that bag loads of optimism in a situation. So even sometimes, if that can feel a bit delusional, I tend to just indulge in it, and hope for the best. So I hope that really, but it's true, isn't it? That's where I'm. Hence my top. You? What about you? How do you, in contrast, keep your picker up?
Well, I think a good way to make myself feel motivated is I'm always one of those people that does things for other people before I do them for myself. So yeah. I often like commit to doing things for people, just like say, yeah, I'm gonna, like, I'll just, you know, I'll do that, or tell people I'm doing things. I think, you know, good mental health is really important around this, and your mindset too. And you know, over the last year, it's become very apparent how important, you know, exercise and sleep and getting some fresh air and healthy eating is. I think if you're a sole business owner, the buck stops with you, doesn't it? Like if you're sick, or if you're not feeling great and you're not doing the work, then there's no salary, you know, income in this business. Also, you know, I like to schedule an hour or 2 a week on my admin day to listen to podcasts. You know, for me, Holly Tucker from Conversations of Inspiration from Not on the High Street, I think she's fantastic. Also, Doing It for the Kids is a great Facebook group and podcast. And you know, the usual business gurus are out there. You know, there's hundreds of them, so you can find one specific to you. I think, you know, following your heroes is a great thing to do as well. And finding your crew, you know, like just being around other people who are doing the same thing as you and being motivated and seeing them being successful can really, really spur you on, I think. So, you know, be it a business network or be it here, and, you know, really making sure that you find a few people from the Recreate course who you can make long-term relationships with and really help each other with your businesses. I think that's really important. You know, with mindset, you know, there's so much written about mindset. You know, Growth Mindset is a great book by Carol Drucker called Growth Mindset at the moment, and I think, you know, it's incorporating emotional intelligence and the way you go about things, and it's about, you know, that's about not allowing yourself to sabotage your business, knowing where your weaknesses are and finding ways to manage them or circumvent them. Sorry, go for it.
One phrase that I've had for years, I discovered it in a training session, the idea of stop, starts and continue. There's a really good practical, on that point about strengths and weaknesses, is to when you're reflecting, is to look at, say, what do you want to stop and list a few things, what do you want to start, list a couple, and what do you want to do more of, you continue what you're doing. And it is often moments like this, isn't it, when we're looking back and we're refocusing, and it's just quickly answer those 3 questions, because you can't change everything at once. And that's the danger in a refocus, is that we sort of throw out where we are and the bathwater, but actually it's about taking those key points.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, and I think this is what you were saying earlier about writing things down. So have place, Padlet's brilliant for just throwing things in your brain away so that you don't have to think about them today. Having lists or your goals visible around your desk or your studio or your work space. Actually, having a business book to write things down on, that's, they're all great ways of really getting it out your head so that you can then go, okay, what is my focus here? And really focusing on the one thing at one time, because a lot of research has been done on multitasking over the last 10 years, and it's been proven it doesn't exist. And that actually what happens is our brains just get really good at switching from one thing to another, but that exhausts your brain. So the best thing to do is to give your full focus. And I've seen so many people saying, they have to lock their phone away in a lockbox in order to get on with their business, because otherwise they can just while away the time seeing what other people are doing in their businesses on social media. So I think that's something to be thinking about. And then and I think we talked about, from a resilience standpoint, being getting around like-minded people, but I think the whole concept of local and hyper-local has come really to the forefront through COVID, since we can only stay in our local environment, and if we don't support our local businesses, they're not going to be there. What have you seen with the hyper-local side of things, James? Anything?
It's a good question. I mean, I've been involved in a hyper-local project.
Okay.
As an aside, it was trying to set up a pavilion in Borough of Haringey, but I mean that kept me sane because it was something to do in the quiet parts, and it was actually, what was quite nice about it was something to do, and because I wasn't getting paid for it, I could be a bit freer in what I was doing. It was a bit more me professional, as opposed to me representing the business. So that was certainly freeing in that sense, to be putting some of my professional practices in place, but not with a earning hat on.
Mm-hmm.
So it's seeing it in different contexts. I suppose that's similar to you and the adage of give it, a busy person something to do and they'll get it done. And your thing about taking on other tasks, it just kept me enriched as a being, not necessarily as a financial model, which was a nice process. And it was nice to feel like you had a relevance to a place, which was handy.
Yeah, and I think we're going to do a theme through this program about collaborations, because collaborations have been so important and so helpful to me and many other businesses. I think even if it's something you do for free on something, it's about you're forming a connection with another business or someone else. You've got obviously the opportunity to open yourself up to lots of other customers / followers in someone else's business. I think you learn a lot from working with another business and seeing how that business owner operates, and you can gain a lot of insight, really. And you can potentially build really long-term solid relationships with people. So I think that's really important. One thing though, I would say one thing that really struck me was I ran an event last year, then we touched on business resilience, and it was a local coffee shop owner actually who's got a music workshop as well. They fix traditional amps and turntables and that sort of thing. And he said, and it's really stuck with me. He said, never not be at a conversation. If you get invited into a conversation, it doesn't matter who with or what sort of thing you expect to come out of it, or even if you think it's not applicable to you, go, because you want to choose to walk away from that. You don't want to close yourself off from the beginning. Really stuck in my mind, because I think, you know, there is an opportunity there to network and get to know people and find out what else is going on, and you never know, right? Absolutely.
And there was a note on doing things for free. I think what's really important is it's absolutely fine to do things for free or for a low fee. And it's a strategy that actually lots of people use in business, even if they don't say that. You know, they may not say, I've just done this for free, but they just put it into their portfolio. But I would always look for gaps in your portfolio. So prioritize doing something for free or a low fee for where you've got a gap and it will really add value. What you don't want to do is get stuck in doing the work that your core work at a low fee regularly. So it's an opportunity to use it as a strategy as well.
Cool. Anyway. Yeah, I agree. And also, you know, I think that's an opportunity to I think really for resilient business, you really need to have at least 3 streams of income in some way, or be selling 3 products or 3 packages, or be selling in 3 different places, ideally 5, because, you know, if one of those streams goes, if one of those shops goes bust, you've lost potentially a third of your income. So I think diversifying is a really, you know, important thing for business resilience, and what you can do in order to find those extra streams is start doing something on the side that then can turn into something. Now I'm sort of conscious about, we've had a massive chat today about all these different things you can do in Refocus. However, we haven't really talked about confidence, and I think potentially confidence can, if you're lacking in confidence, it can derail all of this, because it just stops you from even starting. So have you got any top tips on how you keep your confidence up, James, besides wearing a flowery jumper?
I think I always come back to my starting reason, the reason why I started the business, and remember that point of reference. So I mean, I started it because I spotted that I was quite good at connecting. I wasn't businesses with creative people, and vice versa. So I partly come back to that, you know, because you can get lost in the client commission, that you're doing this for there and that for there, and it can all feel painful. But when I come back to that, and remind myself that that's the core value I offer, and that's what I focus, I actually find that helps me in terms of confidence, because it reminds me why I'm in the mix. And I'm not just comparing myself to the outcomes as a business. The other thing is, I actually, in terms of confidence, I go back and look at what people have said about me in the past. Interesting, your visioning exercise, you're imagining what people are saying about you. So I often ask people for a reference on LinkedIn or Google, etc. And sometimes I just go back and read them, and it helps. Yeah. Remember that someone did value you, even if it doesn't feel like that at the moment, or you haven't had that connection. So that might be a bit egotistical, but actually it works really well for me.
Yeah, and I think, you know, Google reviews are a great thing to have, or product reviews, or anything, you know, like that, or you know, getting even feedback from your suppliers that you can just keep to hand in case you want to put them on your website, or showing as part of your promotional PDF pack. So I think we've talked for long enough. Shall we ask them if anyone's got any questions about this? Carmel, has anyone got any questions?
Yeah, Amy, excuse me, Amy Adams, you had one for these guys. Do you want to ask it?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, we've sort of touched on it, but how do you stop yourself going down a rabbit hole and not reeling yourself back into actually what you're supposed to be doing, and not getting distracted about something else?
Amy, I've just realised we've met previously for the Brew project. Yes, there we go.
That's right. It's brilliant to see you. It's really good.
You too.
Yeah.
Nat, do you want to answer the rabbit hole technique?
Well, for me, it's about scheduling. I think it's about, you know, on a Monday, what do I want to achieve by the end of the week? Okay, how long, putting time against how long I think each task will take. To be honest, I actually book myself in 10-minute sections, and then I track like how much time I'm spending, because if I don't keep, you know, if I say, oh, in the next hour I'll write an Instagram post, like I will take over an hour to do that Instagram post. Whereas if I say in 20 minutes I'll do an Instagram post, then I'll try and make myself do it because I'll really want to do the next thing.
I love your tracking with precision. I'm the opposite. I actually allocate time. Someone gave me a tip once of give yourself less time for jobs you really enjoy and more time for jobs you hate. So when I have to reconcile my VAT return, right, I'll give myself a day. But if it's something I'm going to find really fun, I'll try and do it in an hour. Because that's how I balance. Because I will procrastinate when it comes to the VAT return, and I'll overindulge if I'm on something I like. So that's the
really good tip. Really good tip.
Sort of requests about local creative meetings. I think there's this general consensus that it'd be, you know, as you guys are all in Wandsworth, that it'd be really useful to know of the kind of local hubs. So there's been some great sharing, and I would just suggest that everyone who is happy to share their contacts, as has been suggested, pops them in the chat box and save that down at the end. We would normally do that within the breakout rooms, but there's no reason why you can't all share. So we always just suggest putting your email and maybe social media handles in the chat, and then you can save that down at the end and you've got it to hand. And just to kind of really encourage these conversations carry on after this event, because there's a lot of, you know, similar ideas here. Wouldn't you agree, Nat?
Yeah, and I think Alice is going to set up a Facebook group for you guys after this event. So get on the Facebook group and start getting to know each other and sharing your tips and contacts as soon as possible, because that's a really good way to get to know each other between the sessions.
And the other thing is follow each other.
Yes,
and, you know,
follow each other on social
really
media.
simple, yeah.
So we're going to ask you to introduce yourselves when we go into the breakout rooms in a minute. So we'll save that down, and then afterwards, maybe an exercise this afternoon for us is all to just go and follow each other on social media, and then we'll know what each other does in more detail. Any more questions, Kamal?
There was just one here from another Amy saying, do you have any tips for avoiding burnout as an entrepreneur? And I think that goes back to the kind of work-life balance that we all struggle with.
I'll take that one, I guess. Like, Carmel knows, I work really long hours. I work late in the evening. I see clients in the evening. I've got 2 small children. Like, I come from a banking background, so I've always done it. But the last year, I have really had to be careful, and mainly because I only got 4 hours a day to work because I was homeschooling. But I found a lot of benefit in starting to use meditation apps and being like trying to slow down and not trying to do too much, because I think I'm making better decisions. I think, you know, if you slow down, be methodical about what you're doing, make sure you're looking after yourself, you know, that whole like self-love is so important. I'm using some apps at the moment. I'm tracking my sleep. I'm using a coaching app called Fabulous, which is gives you daily inspiration, and also you can set up routines in there. And I'm monitoring everything I'm eating, so I'm just like being really careful to look after myself. You know, if you make sure you have a bedtime and you go to bed, and if you make sure you build breaks into your day, all that is really good for actually making you much more productive and more creative when you're actually coming to do your work. I think it's that understanding the benefit of doing things slower and giving more of yourself and being more present when you're actually working is important.
Great, thanks, Nat. There's one more I'd just like to ask. It's a really good one. How do you know at what stage to work on your business full-time when you have a part-time job? You know, when to take that jump to go freelance full-time?
James, do you want to touch off on that one?
Question. I think that the answer is there is no right or wrong, but it has to be about a balance of conditions, and you'll know how they factor for you. I think, you know, a survival budget or a reserve is something that just in businesses in general is quite an important thing, and that actually partly relates to the previous one about burnout. You know, so I had a 6 month cash in the bank if I run out with clients, and that was useful in the pandemic. But in this transition, you might also agree that you might need to have a certain level of cash in the bank, or confidence that you can take that margin from work you're going to win, so that you've got that cushion to help with the transition. I think the thing that Nat mentioned earlier about a variety of income sources. So I wouldn't leave a part-time job to make it full-time if you've only got one line of income, and you haven't even got any nurturing income to show that there could be growth. But ultimately, you need to work out what your balance is, and what the indicators are to give you confidence to say, if I make that transition in the next 6 to 12 months, am I going to be able to sustain that gap?
Cool. Yeah, I've just done an Instagram post with 10 tips on how to become self-employed and what to think about and how to deal with your fear, if anyone wants to look at Yama coaching today. So great, so we're on time. I would like you guys to just
last one just to get them all in. I'll just a quick one. I love the idea of reviews, but I don't have a physical location as I'm a sculptor working from home. What is a good way to get reviews online, and can you get Google reviews for a non-physical business?
You can put you can tick a box to say you don't want your address shown, and you won't come up on Google Maps. That's the only thing. But you do appear as when someone Googles you with your 5-star review. So yeah, definitely do it. I've done it for a few businesses, and it's they still get found on Google. So
brilliant. Thank you. Thanks for your questions. Thanks for both your insights.
Thanks, James. So James is going to stay with us as we go into the breakout